Hey, beautiful souls and creative minds. Welcome to the Artist Stoop, the podcast where we turn the art world into your personal playground. I'm Jillian Zapata, your host, and I can't wait to dive into the art world with you. Each episode will be kicking it with an incredible artist, unraveling their stories and turning the spotlight on the magic that happens beyond the brush. Get ready to discover new perspectives, forge connections, and immerse yourself one captivating conversation at a time. So grab your favorite beverage, maybe a sketchbook, and let's jump into the kaleidoscope of creativity together. This is the Artist Stoop, where art isn't just a thing you see, it's an experience you feel. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Artist Stoop. Today, we have the wonderful guest of Marie Pedrero. She creates with skillful use of color and texture to bring to life unique works of art. She is an award-winning artist whose work appears in museums, permanent collections in Florida and Greece, as well in corporate collections, publications, and in film. Her work has been selected by designers on HGTV and the Magnolia Network. Robin uses a symbolic visual language to explore both the visible and invisible, creating a commentary on friendships and thoughts. Each work of art is a journey of exploration inspired by gathered memories across a lifetime of travel and experience. Robin creates from her studio at the Mill House in the Cotton Mill in McKinney, Texas. So welcome to the podcast, Robin.
Thank you, Jillian. Thank you so much. I'm so appreciative that you invited me to your podcast.
Yeah, I've seen your work. We briefly met at the other art fair, but where is your studio space at the Mill House? Is it in one of the group ones, or do you have an individual space?
I have a space in an open studio. So
Okay.
there's several studios in the space, and I have a space in there. And I absolutely love being here. As a matter of fact, you interviewed Baron, and he moved into the building last year or whatever. So he's down the hall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember last September, there was that little art festival there at the Mill House, and I remember walking around, and that was my first time there, and I really, really like it. It's a trek for me to get over there. It's about a 45-minute drive to an hour, because I'm all the way over on the other side of the Metroplex. So, but it is a cool building. Like, I really, really like that building. I was like, if I needed to potentially rent a space for a studio, it is definitely on my list of places to potentially rent.
Yes, it's absolutely wonderful, and more artists are coming here. Leticia Herrera, she just had moved into a space, and Ardelia moved into a space, and then we have, and those are separate from Millhouse, but we also have many Millhouse artists, Dana Brock, Lisa Temple, and Gail Delger, Linda McNamara, and there's just a lot of artists here, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, I just met Leticia a couple weekends ago at the DGFA at the after party here at the you were in Paris for the Dallas Art Fair, but the rest of us here in Dallas, we went to the DGA the Dallas Galleries for Advocacy after party to celebrate, the wonderful event that was. So tell us about Paris. It was your first time. Did you come back filled with so much inspiration to...
Yes, I completely did. I visited, of course, the Louvre and museums, and so many museums, and I was there for the Paris Art Fair, and that was absolutely fantastic. Was at the Center Pompidou. I went to the Modern Museum. Didn't miss out on seeing museums and art in Paris, and they were all very different. We had some tour guides who were historians, and that was fabulous. But for me, seeing the art was super and wonderful, but going to Monet's garden was the most inspirational. just
Yeah.
being there and experiencing his paintings in person,
Yeah.
like what he was inspired by for his paintings. Jillian, I cried. I
I believe it.
literally cried. It was so incredible.
It probably gave you goosebumps just to know that like he actually stood there looking out on those gardens himself.
Yes,
Just
yes,
like you're like, I have stood where he has stood, kind of a thing. And, this not only is this been his inspiration, but now I can take it home and it can be my inspiration too, just to have that um that connection to
yes.
something like that. That's really special.
It really was very, very special. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So I have a question just because how did the Paris Art Fair differ from art fairs that we have here, like the Dallas Art Fair or the other art fair? Like art completely different style of art or
No, I wouldn't say
no?
so. No. Uh, some very comparable works of art to my surprise. I was actually kind of surprised by that. There were some wonderful pieces. I enjoyed some of these layered cardboard sculptural pieces that were created. There was a bird installation where the artist painted curtains, created the birds out of clay, I believe it was. They were sculptural. And
Oh,
then as you
cool.
walked in, she had bird songs playing. So that was a really cool installation to see.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of abstracts, and there was a haystack that was completely sprayed in gold. So it was interesting.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you had a great time in Paris. I've never been. It's definitely on my list of places to go. Um and yeah, I haven't been. So let's dive in here, Robin, because I really want to know more about your work, because you layer colors so beautifully in your works, and you have just this beautiful abstract representation that I want to know more. So in your artist statement, you say you paint the spirit and energy of life in rhythmic layers of colors. Can you explain that to us? Because I just that statement just sounds like a song.
It is a little poetic, and I will say, being an artist, we tend to speak in colors, and shapes, and lines, and our language is visual. So,
Yes.
in order for us as artists to come forth, unless you're a writer as well, to come forth with a language that can communicate and a vocabulary that people can relate to about what your art is with an artist statement, it takes journaling and working at it. And
Yeah.
so journaling is part of the discovery process. I mentor artists and I also teach art business. And so this is part of what I do with other artists. I teach them how to discover their artist statement through journaling. And you can discover what your art is about by going through your journals and finding the repetitive words. And so you circle those and you come up with it. So when you go into mine, the spirit and energy of life and rhythmic layers of color, I take what it is that I've experienced, for instance, Monet's garden, because I was just there. So I take that in that experience, and then from here, emotively, I pour it out with color. And so for me, that's capturing the spirit and essence of what I experienced. And then the rhythmic layers of color is because I really feel like for me, painting is a rhythmic dance with the paint. And I do layer colors and paint uh, to achieve the effect that I want. And so I think that that statement explains it.
That's so true on on all those levels. I totally resonate with that because, I tell people that when I paint, I dance. Like it's not like I don't my arms just not stiff. Like it's a full body paint. I'm gonna have to set up a camera one day and like post a video of me because it gets a little cray cray in here. I dance a lot like oh man, sorry. Elaine from Seinfeld. Got a lot of Elaine moves from Seinfeld.
I
Um,
totally understand.
yeah, no, it is, and that's one of the things. Like I had an art coach tell me one time, like you need to stretch and move your body before you paint.
You do, yes.
You
And do
need to
the
stretch your
shoulders
body
and
and
arm
you just
circles.
relax before you
Hmm.
paint because it's true. You do have that rhythmic part of it when you go so that your body is relaxed enough so your mind and your arm are connected to know what needs to come out.
Yes, yes. And there was you know, I've been painting a long time, and there are different, there's an evolution of my art. And when you're an artist for a long time, you go through various stages. But certain pieces that I would create, sometimes I would listen to the same song on repeat, or I would listen to the same album, CD, or you know
Yeah.
whatever over and over again. And sometimes it's different. This year, I actually started listening to audiobooks, and sometimes that changes the rhythm a little bit. And so I've been paying attention to that.
Interesting.
How what I'm hearing is affecting my process and movements.
Yeah, like I like because I do listen to music. I'll put my headphones on and I'll like blast my music so that it's like really part of me so I can feel the music, not just like off of a normal speaker, it's like I need to feel it in my head. Um And it's true when you listen to different songs with different beats, a little slower, a little faster, you paint differently. So
Yes.
that's interesting about the audiobooks, especially like if a male or a female is reading it, or if it's like a drama or like a mystery. I don't know what kind of books you're listening to, or like a murder mystery, or if it's like a
There's a lot of
romance.
crime and murder mystery.
That's okay. I'm right there with you on those. Um, but that's interesting to me. I
Mhm.
would really I want to see the difference between a couple different paintings or you listening to a couple different audiobooks.
I really thought that I've experienced that because it was like I wasn't making something that was flowing. And so I thought about it when I came back from Paris, especially. I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to focus more on listening to music while I am specifically painting these, because I do feel like there was a difference in concentrating on maybe the words or the storyline, whereas music just kind of flows. And like there's parts of painting where you're very, very active and you're laying out color and there's a lot of movement, and you can listen to more active music. And
Yep.
then sometimes when you have to do some detail work and you're in there working on those things, uh, that has to change for me. I'm very
Yeah.
affected by the sound. Uh, it's almost like the silly thing where you turn the music off when you're like parking your
When you
car.
get lost, like I need to turn this down so I can figure out where I'm going. We all do it. It's like I need to concentrate. Totally true. So what kind of music do you listen to?
Oh, very eclectic.
Oh, tell us.
A wide range. It a long time ago it wasn't country at all, but my children were listening to some country, so I actually have some, you know, Miranda Lambert and a little bit in there once in a while. But I listen to Lenny Kravitz and you know old school and some I was a headbanger rock and roll person back in the 80s and 90s.
Nice.
So some of that is in there once in a while. Uh, but more so singer songwriter
Like who?
music. Uh, even like Ben Howard and I'm losing the names, but
Yeah.
yeah, and I just kind of have just lists on Spotify that, and actually I think you can see them there.
Yeah,
Um,
you can share
yeah,
your Spotify playlists.
so they're on there, and I have some that I use specifically classical music that I'll use for some of my classes. I used to paint to Cirque du Soleil. It was like performance art. It was
Oh,
really cool.
fun.
Yeah, that Cirque du Soleil I painted to for several years. Kuza in particular, yeah, it's super fun to paint to. Um, I don't know. There's sometimes spa music, very ethereal kind of music. Uh, so it always varies.
I'm right there with you. But yeah, no, you can share your Spotify playlist with people. Like I did that for a collection where an entire collection was inspired by songs. And so I at last year, last May at the other art fair, I had my Spotify playlist. I put it on a QR code next to the
Oh,
labels
cool.
and put it up so it's just like people I was like, okay, now listen to the music and look at the art. And so it's on there. It's because, everyone can see, you can make your playlist public or private, whatever. But yeah, you can
That's
you so
cool.
you
Skill,
that'd be
Julian.
really fun to do that, to see like, okay, I painted these paintings listening to these songs, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and like sharing it with people so that they have that user experience as well to like
We
tap into
saw
you.
we saw a great show at Linda's the owner of the gallery and curator, Conduit. And
Mhm.
at the Conduit show, and I'm not remembering the artist's name, I'm so sorry, but he had index cards of every single painting he ever did, and on every card he wrote everything he listened to.
That's incredible.
I was just amazed. He wrote down all the colors, all the brushstrokes, all the everything that he did, but also every single piece of music or book, whatever he listened to. So I think I'm going to keep notes like that in my artwork archive.
I think it's fascinating because, because a lot of people like who are artists, who are inspired to be artists, they want to know what's going on in our brains when we paint. So it's like giving them that little bit of insight into our minds is really unique, because like on that playlist, like you said, you could have like AC/DC, Black Sabbath, all the way to classical music, depending on what point you're painting on that painting, which would be
Yeah.
like a complete, like, mind blowing experience for someone to like look at your painting, listen to that little bit of playlist, and go, okay, she went from here to here.
Yes.
And just maybe have that just that other little I like to call them touch points for a collector to like have that connection, you
They do
know
like that. Yes.
Yeah, they do like to have that story. It's just like, oh, she said she was listening to that, and that's one of my favorite songs, and I love that about it. And, I can maybe see that, that beat of that song in that or something.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So you have been painting for a very long time and have the accolades to show for it. You have awards, you've been film, publications, museums. So how did you start painting, and how did you develop your current style of abstract?
Okay. Well, yes, I am an award winning artist. And I began painting when I was 14, 15 years old. I grew up in Connecticut, and I started painting with a woman that was at a frame store, and she had her paintings in there. And I started taking classes with her in Ledyard, Connecticut, where there's now a big casino. Foxwoods Casino's there now. And when I was studying painting with her, I began studying through a group of artists that studied under master artist Robert Rothman. And I studied with that group of colorists. And then going to the history of Robert Brockman, he studied with Robert Henry, and the history goes back and back and back all the way to Cezanne of
Oh,
who they
wow.
studied with. So, in my imagination, in my heart, I call Cezanne my father of painting. So that's just kind of fun for me.
That's so
Uh,
cool.
I think so. I think it's really cool. But you do, because it was working with artists who were master artists, only worked from real life.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's why I mentioned to you earlier that I've gone through many transitions because, I was young and I learned to paint like those master artists in impressionistic kind of style, and then continue to develop my art. When my children were young, I was a portrait artist. I did portraits for our entire community, their school and the church and everyone in our community, and that is primarily what I did. And I really loved faces, and I enjoyed creating that way. I did a lot of them, excuse me, in soft pastel, and I became a signature member of the Pastel Society of America, which was a goal of mine. And so I am very proud to have achieved that. That
That's
means
awesome.
that I can sign my name in pastel and put a PSA after my name.
Nice.
I continued with my journey and moved in Florida to Orlando, Florida, where I also painted live at Cafe Choo Tangos. And there they called me the Sky Lady because I did a lot of big, vibrant sky pieces. And when you move to Florida, you can't help but create a big piece of the sky. The clouds are enormous and wonderful. Then, in part of my journey, I shared a studio space with another artist who was working in acrylics. And I started to dabble in acrylics. And I moved to another studio space that was a storefront, Janine Taylor Folk Art and Gallery on First. And that's where I came in contact with artists that were creating folk art. And I don't know how familiar you are with folk art, like many of them are in museums, and Ruby used to just paint signs for her fruit stand. So she'd have like these strawberries and for sale for such and such amount of money, little signs, and people wanted to buy them. And she became very well known and famous for those signs. And in this gallery, where there were both artists that were working in a variety of mediums and the Janine Taylor folk art, the folk artists were new to me. It was something completely different than what I had grown up being educated by. And people loved the art, and it was different for me to experience that. They weren't always recognizable figures. The skill level wasn't the same as looking at, a Monet or something like that. And
Yeah.
they were interesting and beautiful and amazing. And I eventually, within the next year or so, I started to take what I was experiencing and playing in acrylics because it was easy to work with, easier to ship than soft pastels at the time. I started to develop what I call my whimsical nature. And so the whimsical nature style is plants and trees and birds and foxes and all kinds of dragonflies and living things. And that really took off for me in like 2008 to 2012, when Twitter was really cool. And I got on Twitter, and it really like took off and tripled my income
Oh, wow.
back then when I was doing this whimsical nature artwork. And that really started to gain collectors for me all over the world. I have collectors in every state in the United States, more specifically who have collected the whimsical nature style. So, and I have those in museums in Florida as well, and in hospitals and public collections. So then I started to transition in 2015 or so, playing with abstracts. I didn't have a large respect for abstracts. I thought it was easy, or I just didn't respect it back then. I'm almost embarrassed to say that. So I thought I'd play with it and see what would come of it. And I did some, and I sold them immediately. I did some in soft pastel even, and sold those right away. Then we moved to Texas in 2016, and I decided, okay, I'm going to really. Texas is Dallas is contemporary,
Yeah.
and I really needed to do something contemporary. And so I focused my energy on trying to make really good abstracts. And I feel very good about my work. And now I absolutely love abstracts.
It's it's funny. Thank you for sharing all that. And because your abstracts are beautiful. Um, but
Thank you.
it's funny because I too at some point did not understand or appreciate abstracts. I was just like, it's just paint thrown around. But people, if we gave you paint and we said, go go make something. Go paint an abstract painting. Find the balance with color and tone and texture and try and tell a story. You will end up with a big blob. A big brown blob most of the time. And so it's funny, I've had this conversation before with a friend that, like, for me, I have all my abstracts come from a place of realism. So, like, yours comes from, like, your travels and experiences, like, you're trying to put that on canvas. And so it's just like, we all know how to draw and paint. You studied under those masters. We all can paint an apple. We all can draw a human figure. We can all draw whatever. But we choose to stop way ahead before that image is ever finished. That is the skill of becoming an abstract painter.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting. It's so interesting how Instagram, so full of a variety of abstract artists, um, it's enlightening.
And there's so many different, like, no two abstracts are the same. That's what's so cool.
It is cool.
I love that. So can you tell us some of the inspirations and stories behind some of your pieces?
I can. I have a piece behind me. This
Yeah, it's
is,
nice and red and it has some blues and
I'm
some
not sure
darks in
how much you
there.
can see it.
Oh,
It's called
yeah.
Translating Possibilities.
What's it called
And
again? Sorry.
Translating Possibilities. Let's see if I
Okay.
can.
That's
The
really
light's a
pretty.
little bit strong on
Yeah,
there, but
I'll include it in the show notes. But people
I
on
have
watching on
actually,
YouTube will be able to see it and then we can include it in the show notes.
I'll make sure I send it to you. Again, when I was working in pastel creating some landscapes, I decided to really try something different, and I used these red skies. So I had a whole series of red skies, which one of them ended up being on a wine label. I won a competition for that.
Oh,
And
cool.
so the red that's in here is something that I really do like to use. And I like that red turquoise combination and how that plays. I like my abstracts to look very atmospheric. And so the color comes from here first and it lays down, and then I create this space,
Yeah.
this atmospheric space. And as I was working on it and building in there, I think that those black lines right there kind of looked like a chandelier.
Oh.
And I almost called this chandelier. I was real close to it, but I didn't because um, I think about my collectors and what they might want or choose. And uh, I liked calling it translating possibilities more so. And so that's what I did with that piece. I have another piece that I sent you called Boats and Bridges.
Okay.
And a curator pointed out, doing some work for the Bridget Mayer Gallery's upcoming fundraiser in June. And she asked me to do something similar to that piece because she really likes it. And it that comes, I remember being around a lot of marinas, and so much goes into art of your history, even from your childhood, recent experiences, childhood experiences, so much. Um, my father would think he was funny, but it wasn't funny. He would
Hey.
uh, want to do like scary things on bridges, thinking, oh, what if the car went off the bridge or something like that. So, or just things like that. And so bridges are both interesting to me and also scary. Bridges
Terrifying.
also are bridges that connect you from one part of your life to the next, from one experience to the next, from one relationship to another, to connecting you, to getting you wherever it is that you need to go, both, symbolically, metaphorically, and
Mm-hmm.
literally.
Yeah.
Okay. And so seeing boats and bridges together bring back those memories, but also in travels, like going into New York City and all of the big bridges and the boats and the intersections, and in San Francisco and Sausalito and all of those different places. So I take all of those experiences, and as I'm building the layers, the paint kind of shows me things, and as it shows me things, I kind of start to pull them out of the paint. And
Yeah.
so when you look at boats and bridges, you'll kind of see that in there. And I like for the experience to be personal to each individual who looks at it. My favorite quote is from Mr. Rogers, talking about art being that sacred space between the viewer and the art. And I believe that to be true. And so I like to leave things a little vague so that it's not so specific that I've told them exactly what to think or feel or be at.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's so cool. And that's really special. That's a really beautiful analogy for bridges. I never thought of that. So thank you for sharing that. And I'll make sure to include that in the show notes so you guys can see boats and bridges. Um, well, so that leads me to my next question. Do you typically paint in collections or do you do one-offs? Like how do you set that up?
I typically put paint in collections. I work on at least 20 pieces at the same time throughout my studio, and I will work in collections. Now, sometimes there's one-offs. Uh, Sometimes there's white elephants. You do something for a show
Yeah.
that you wouldn't have normally painted, or I had a commission from a celebrity and I did two pieces for her. And so I have the other one, I'll probably not do another one like that. So mostly in collections. I
Nice.
like to
And
work in series.
do when you do a collection, does it like have a typical theme or like does it just kind of just start painting
I more so
or
start
style?
painting. Yeah, that too. I I do a I've noticed I like to work on a series of 8x8s and 12x12s, at least nine of them. And so I do those, and then I do corresponding pieces, which are um, maybe 16 by 20, 24 by 24, and then a couple of really large pieces too.
Mhm. Gotcha. Well, yeah, so you have a nice variety of sizes available. That's really good.
and it kind of works out things when you do the small ones, or if you do the big one and then translating it into the small ones, and you're working on similar palettes. And do you ever notice how, like, you're in that mood and in that frame of mind, but if you let something go too long, you lose it and it changes it. So,
Yep. Yep. That's why I
artist
always,
problems.
right. I was talking to another artist friend about this recently, and he said that I overworked it, and then my favorite part of that painting was gone.
That happens.
And it's just like, oh, and then you have to walk away from it because you're mad at it. Because you have conversations with your paintings. You're like, I'm mad at you right now. You're mad at me. We are not vibing. We need to take a break. And then you come back and you're like, okay, I think we can work through this. And then just trying to build your layers back up to try and or try and scrape away something to bring back what you had. And yeah, it's a love-hate
But it is
relationship.
But it is interesting. Those layers that are there, even if you want to call them quote unquote mistakes or
Yeah.
the less favorable parts, are part of that piece
Oh
because it's
yeah.
all part of it. And had you not gone there, the continuing layers wouldn't have the same effect.
Exactly. Exactly. No, and it's really fun. I don't know if you do this. I take pictures of my work as I'm going because sometimes
Yes.
when you look at it through on in a picture, you can see spots better, like where
Yes.
you might need something rather than just by looking at it. And then it's really fun to watch the evolution of the painting of like, oh yeah, I'm really glad I added something there. I was like, oh, I should have probably bring that back. Oh, I did like that color, or you know,
I do
playing with
that.
tone, playing with tone. Do you
Mhm.
ever put it in black and white and then see
I'm
where
just
you
going to ask you that if you put
yeah,
it in black and white.
put
It's a
in
really good tool.
it's
Artists a long,
fantastic.
yeah, artists a long time ago used to use a variety of tools to do exactly that thing. The dark glass, to see tone and value, and now we just have our handy phones.
Yeah. So, audience, for those of you who are artists, what we're talking about is like if we take a picture of our works, and then if you go into the photo settings and change it to make it a black and white photo, you can see tone and value. So it's just like you always want to have a nice balance between light, medium, and dark, so that it's not too dark and there's not any light spots, or if it's not too bright and you don't have enough dark spots, and have enough medium values that it balances all of that out. So that's
Good
the purpose
explanation.
of putting it into a black and white photo, to see those tones and values, to make sure it's a balanced painting.
It's a great tool.
It is, and yeah, I use it all the time, all the time. So now I need to know, how did you get your work on HGTV and Magnolia Network?
Everybody wants to know that.
I think it's so cool. Like, because I another artist I had, she had hers in a commercial, and I think it's really cool because I used to work in film, and so but I worked in animation, so it's just like how I know that my friends like get props and things, but that is for design related shows. So you probably worked with designers, correct?
Yes, I've worked with designers for many years. I've done paintings for giant mansions that are on YouTube, and I've been at High Point and had my work. The designer took my painting and designed wallpaper that was inspired by my painting. It wasn't a replica of my painting. And she featured my work at High Point with those things. But HGTV and Magnolia Network happened because of Instagram.
Oh,
And
cool.
I got a message from Tomorrow Day, and she said she loved my artwork and wanted to know if she could use it in her show. And so that began our relationship. And I drove up to her place and delivered artworks, some really huge pieces to her. And she continues to want me to have my artwork used in her designs, and she's does bargain mansions. It was on HGTV and then Magnolia Network, and it's actually really exciting and fun. So I am honored that she chose my artwork to be part of her designs. And I also had artwork in a gallery. HGTV went there, and it was filmed in that gallery. And then some of my collectors, they had artwork in their home, and our wonderful Dallas Rambling Redhead was doing a renovation on their home, and so my artwork was featured in their home.
Who's the Dallas Rambling Redhead?
Redhead? Oh goodness. She's on HGTV.
I don't watch enough
I'll,
HGTV.
um,
I watch Property Brothers.
she has a coffee shop in Allen, and they also started a brewery. She's really wonderful to watch. And I'm
Okay.
not coming up with her first name right now.
We'll have to
But
we'll include it in the show notes, people. We'll include it in the show when we figure it out.
just going from here, it's still jet lag.
No, it's okay. And I have a cold, so I am cold medicine is
Good excuses.
keeping me up and running today, people. Oh, awesome. So do you have any shows coming up? Are you going to be part of the other art fair in May? Are you doing anything fun in the next couple of months here in the Dallas area?
Well, locally, I just did a bowl for Empty Bowls that's
Hmm.
here, and I have that show, the fundraiser coming up in Pennsylvania and Philly with the Bridget Mayer Gallery.
Oh, me too. For the
Oh,
little 8 by
good.
8 For the little
I,
8 by 8
I'm doing a 24 by 24 because I've worked with Bridget for many years,
Okay.
and she asked me to do a 24 by 24. But yes, that
Okay,
show. So
for the
we're going to
nonprofit, for the adopt a oh, I have written down.
Yes, that show.
Yes, that one. The nonprofit for to help people get grants for adoption. Yes.
Yes, good memory.
Okay. Yes, I watched the little live thing between the person who runs that program and Bridget Mayer, and to heard about her story, and I watched it on Instagram, and it's a really unique thing. So there's this gallery, everyone, in Philadelphia called the Bridget Mayer Gallery, and just like a lot of galleries tend to do, sometimes uh they'll put out a call to raise money for an organization that's near and dear to their hearts. So the call is for us artists. We all have, we submit our work, and if we get accepted, we have the pleasure of creating a piece for the show. And this piece in particular, I'm doing an 8 by 8. Robin's doing a 24 by 24. And the percentage of the proceeds goes to the gallery, but then a large chunk of the proceeds actually goes to the organization that they're helping fund. And then obviously we as artists, we do get a cut when our piece sells, but
Which is
this,
rare.
which is rare to do. But for this one in particular, I wish I had the organization, but it's to help people who are wanting to adopt, and because adoptions is very, very expensive. And so this woman who had trouble getting pregnant, she started this nonprofit organization to help other families get grants to help pay for adoption. So that's what that is, and it's coming up in June. Yeah, that'll
Yeah,
be in June
June
in
11th or
Philly.
13th.
Yeah. So I want to try and go, but I have some things in my schedule, so we'll see if I can make it up there. If you're, are you going?
I have the same, it's my birthday weekend and Father's Day weekend. And so I'm like, do I get to go for my birthday, or what exactly will I be doing? So I'm not decided yet, but I would like to go. I was there for the last one, and it was quite spectacular. And I adore Bridget, and I always love working with her and the other artists in that area. But to get back to your question about what else I'm doing,
Yeah.
I have a gallery in North Carolina, Art on 7th, and they are presently selling art, but their street is under construction.
Oh,
Yeah, so they're not open regular hours. They just sold a painting for me, and it's wonderful. And I do enjoy having artwork in galleries. I'm not doing any fairs this year.
yeah.
Here at Millhouse, there's tons of shows that regularly happen. And with my studio being here, people come in from those shows. And that is really wonderful, having my studio space accessible to the public, like it is here in at the Cotton Mill in McKinney, Texas.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm gonna have to make it down there to see you, see Derek. So yeah, so
yeah,
everyone, just like our first artist, Derek Barron, she's Robin is in the same facility in McKinney, Texas, just north of Dallas. It's called the Mill House, and I will include that in the show notes with the address and whatnot. Are you there most days?
I am here Monday through Thursday for sure, Friday sometimes too. I have to share with you something very exciting though.
Okay.
Back in, I don't know, 10 years ago, I was 2014. I was the curator for what was called then the Twitter art exhibit. David Sandum of Norway asked us artists on Twitter to send him art because his library in Norway had no books. In Moss, Norway, they didn't have enough books. And so he wanted to do something about it. And I was like, of course I'll send you art, and then people would buy the art and just, send it in an envelope. So hundreds and hundreds of us did this. And I thought, this is a great idea. We need to do something more with it. And so did another person, and we reached out to David, and we ended up forming a board for the Twitter art exhibit. And it went on for many years. We supported other foundations and did fundraising by artists creating artwork and being a part of these shows. And we had them in California, New York, the UK, Canada, many, many places. Before I moved here to Texas, I had resigned from that board. And now, 10 years later, since Twitter changed its name to X, the name of the show has changed, but it's the postcard art exhibit. And it's going to be right here where I'm at in the cotton mill. And it's going to be artists supporting artists to support Millhouse and for
Oh,
the
cool.
programming that Millhouse does in order to have more and more shows for artists.
That's so cool.
It's
And
exciting.
when is
So I'm
that?
inviting you.
Oh, okay.
Please submit.
Oh, I
Um, I, sent,
will.
I sent you the call to artists, and all it is artwork on paper that's a 5x7, all
And
originals. We're going to have an incredible event. David will be flying in from Norway, and Carol from California. People will be flying in from all over for this international exhibition that I'm curating for the postcard art exhibit.
and
So
when
I
is
am
this?
super excited. That will be September 21st. And
September
the
20th.
deadline, we have a catalog and everything. The deadline is, I think, June 28th.
Okay.
So you'll get all that information when you register. And I am encouraging everyone to participate in this. I'm hoping to get more than 1,000 cards, and then we'll break the record if we do that. And everything's bigger in Texas, so we've got to break the record.
I love that. No, okay, so I will definitely work on. I've never I used to work on stuff so small, but I'll have to working on small is tough for me. It's a challenge, but I love a challenge. I love a challenge.
I can give you a tip.
I usually so my what's your tip, and then I'll tell you what I typically do.
You can create big art and cut it up.
Oh, that's really cool. So yeah, that's kind of what I did in my last collection that I just released, my Jubilantly Empowered. I had scraps of fabric that were not fabric, canvas that were too small to be a big piece, so I chopped it up and then I placed it all on my board as if it were one big canvas, and I painted it as if it were one, and then but they still were in each individual piece. So I might do something like that again.
Is that on Instagram?
Yeah, it's on my website, it's on Instagram. Yeah.
Oh, I'll go look at
Yeah,
that.
they're really cool. And I hung them tapestry style. And so it's like there's some little ones like 7x8 one, and there's like a couple 16 by 20s, but I painted it as if it were one big painting, but they were still each individual piece.
Oh,
Yeah.
intriguing.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, Robin, thank you so much for coming on to the Artist Stoop today. Really appreciate it. I will make sure to include your website, your Instagram, where people can find you in your studio, and all of the couple paintings we talked about. And if there's any artists listening to, I'll make sure to include that call to arts in there as well. So thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much, Jillian.
Yeah. And that, my friends, wraps up another colorful episode of The Artist Stoop. A huge thank you to our incredible guests for sharing their art and stories. If you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on the next Stoop chat. And don't forget to spread the love. Share your favorite episodes with fellow art enthusiasts, and let's build this community together. Connect with us on social media at JGuze Studio and Jillian Zepeda Art for behind-the-scene peeks, artist spotlights, and a sneak peek at my own art. Until next time, stay inspired, stay curious, and keep that creative fire burning. This is Jillian Zepeda signing off from the Artist Stoop. And remember, the world is your canvas, so paint it vividly.